Hello, I'm Dr. Joshua Henson with Rediscover Oikos. Do you wonder if Christian coaching is really for you? Is it really worth the investment? Well, I have a question for you. Do you have a dream that God has given you? Do you have a vision for your future? Are you interested in starting a new business, or do you like to see a new change in your life? Well, we have a great opportunity for you. It's called Dream Builders. Beginning the first Monday of August, we have a class just for you that is designed to help people who are transitioning to a new season in their life to better discover what God has for them. So we want to encourage you to be a part of our Dream Builders group class. It is a wonderful opportunity to see what God has for you. Come check us out on redo.church online. God bless. Hey everyone, and welcome to our first episode of Redo.Church videocast. We are so glad to have you with us today as we are planning a great time together. And we just want you to take a moment to like our page. If you hadn't had a chance to like our Redo.Church page, we want to encourage you to go to our YouTube channel and subscribe as well to our YouTube channel. We are simulcasting now on multiple platforms, and we are glad you're here. Please comment and let us know you're here. We are so glad to have you because we're going to have a great conversation tonight. We have Dr. Craig Bell with us. You are going to be blessed by him. So every Thursday night at 8:30, I'm going to be coming on with a video cast to talk about church stuff, the various issues we're facing, whether it's in ministry, whether it's in leadership. We're going to be talking about various spiritual matters, hopefully to help us develop spiritually, to confront some areas that we're facing as a culture, as a society, as well as a church. And so welcome today. We are so glad to have each one of you. Please like this, go ahead and share it out as well. And we're going to have a great time. And one of the reasons I am so glad to have with us right now my good friend, Dr. Craig Bell, with us today, because I love this guy. You're going to be blessed by him as I introduce him here in just a second, as he pops onto the screen here in just a minute. You're going to be blessed by Craig. Craig is just a great man of God. He's got a great heart. He comes from the banking world and the IT world, but he has a heart for Christian ministry. And I'm excited to announce not only is he joining our video cast today, but Craig is also joining the Rediscover Oikos team. He is coming in as a coach and a consultant with me, and I am so glad to have Craig with us. And listen, I want to challenge you today, encourage you. If you need some people to speak into your life, if you need some godly people to speak new direction into your life, to help you navigate some various aspects that you're facing. Maybe it's a new season that you're looking at, or maybe it's a new dream that God's given you. I want to encourage you to reach out to us at redo.church, reach out on our webpage, or even direct message us there on Facebook. We want to be here for you. We want to engage with you. So we're going to get started tonight. We have a great topic. I am excited about it. We're going to be talking about something that I believe is going to touch all of our hearts. We're talking about the voice that we're hearing all around us. You know, there's so many voices around us. There's so many things that we're facing, and we're going, how are we going to make it? How are we going to hear the voice of God? And so we're going to be talking today about whose voice are we listening to? Whose voice is it anyway? And as we talk about that today, I want to introduce to you my friend, Dr. Craig Bell, who is just a great man of God, and I am thankful. Craig, welcome to Rediscover Oikos. Welcome to this wonderful journey, this video cast we're on. I just want to say I'm glad to have you as my first guest on Redo.Church. Welcome, my friend. God bless you. Say hey to everybody.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much, Dr. Henson. He says so much about me, but I'm actually one of his students, and I told him I'm always in student mode when I am in his presence. So it is just a joy to be here tonight.
Oh man, it's good to have him. And I tell you, Craig is the kind of person who he fills a room full of energy and love. And I tell you, this is the kind of guy you want to have pour into your life. And so we're so glad to have Craig with us tonight. So our conversation tonight, Craig, is a pretty interesting one. We're talking really about the voices all around us. There are so many voices around us right now. So many people that are trying to speak into our lives. And I noticed a lot of people are really asking a basic question, which is, who do we trust? Who are the voices that we can trust in our lives? And there's negative voices, there's positive voices, there's a death of expertise. There was a day that we trusted experts, and now we seem to not even trust experts or our government. And people are just simply asking, who are the voices that we can trust, and how can we distinguish between those voices? And I want to begin with a scripture. Each week we're going to begin with one quick passage, and I just want to remind you what Jesus says about voices. He says this. He says, "My sheep hear my voice, and another they will not follow." And what's interesting about that is God's voice, the voice of God, speaks through many people, right? And so that's where it gets kind of difficult when we talk about the voice of God. There's so many different people who claim to be the voice of God, but the question is, are they? And so as we get started, I want to also encourage everyone, if you have a question online or as we get to discuss some things tonight, if you would like us to talk about anything, don't hesitate just to drop a comment. I'll be checking all of the comments tonight, and we will try to do our best to answer any questions that you have. Good to see some folks joining with us tonight. Let's go ahead and start with our first question. We want to kind of start with this, Craig. We're going to ask this question. What are the negative ramifications of having the wrong voices speaking into our lives? So in your estimation, what are some of the issues that we're facing with having the wrong people speak into our lives?
Yeah, of course, Dr. Henson, you and I met through Regent University. And so one of the things that became apparently clear to me as a student at Regent is that your worldview is extremely important. And so, because whether we accept it or not, whether we realize it or not, we respond to things based on the perspective of our worldview. So it is critical that if you are listening to someone, if someone is sowing into your life, especially something that is God-centered, so if it is your vision, if it is your calling, what you're trying to do, it's important that you make sure that that person has a similar worldview, because they're going to speak to you through their worldview. And if their worldview is different from you, then the perspective that they're going to bring to the table is different. So let me just give you an example. A conversation my pastor and I have had recently, as he's been teaching on your calling, I came to realize that everybody in Scripture who had a call was called directly into the issue that they were supposed to be addressing. Moses was called into all the turmoil of the children of Israel. John the Baptist was called into the wilderness. So if that is your worldview, that you're called into an issue, then as you're coaching someone and they're telling you about obstacles, you understand that that's just the way God works. If that is not your worldview, and now you're asking a potential coach or you're asking a consultant, hey, I'm looking to do this, and here are all these obstacles, they're going to see those obstacles very, very differently. And so it is just critical that your worldview matches and links up so that the information, the perspective that you're looking from is a positive one, so that they're not leading you down a direction based on their worldview. So I just think it's so critical that you have that same perspective, and that you have somebody who sees obstacles as positive, because their worldview says that God calls you into the midst of whatever he wants you to do.
That's good stuff. I think we, aligning the right people in our lives, the scripture talking about being unequally yoked, right? And that's kind of that idea, right? We have,
How can two walk together unless they agree?
Right? You want people in your life that align with you. With that being said, though, now, so let's take the devil's advocate on this for a second. How do we then distinguish? Because there's also the problem with echo chambers, right? Yeah. We have a big issue with that in our communities today. Everyone has an echo chamber. Everyone has, especially on Facebook or social media, you have a tendency to listen to the same people over and over again. So isn't there also a part of this that a true person who shares your worldview that's from God is also going to be one who will hold you accountable? Yes. That'll challenge you, right? You need those kind of people in your life that'll challenge you. You it's one thing just to, there's some people tell you how great you are, But sometimes those type of people, I'm actually writing a little, get ready. This is coming out. It's going to be a Bible study coming out in the next few months. I hope anyway, God helping me, on that exact issue, how we need different people in our lives, all going down the same track. Everybody's going down the same road, right? We're all believing in God. We believe in God's purpose, but you need people to hold you accountable. You need people who will also encourage you, who will mentor you, who will coach you, who will love you. But then you need those people sometimes that'll kick you in the butt as well, right?
I completely agree. And I think that's what coaching is all about. It's just that whole notion of accountability.
Yeah.
You can tell yourself all of the great stuff. You can tell yourself how great you are, but you do indeed need someone who's going to be honest in a loving way, but you need someone who's going to be honest with you. And I think that also comes a part of finding someone who has that same mindset. While they understand where you're trying to go, they also understand that the road is going to be tough, and that they're not helping you by just echoing how great you already think you are, or how easy you think this is, or coddle you because you're now frustrated. It is that person that genuinely loves you, genuinely is concerned, and understands that your vision and your dream and your calling is bigger than just you. Yeah. Then they understand that they have an obligation to be honest with you.
That's good. I like that idea of the obligation, this mutual obligation.
Right.
And for those that aren't familiar, what Craig's talking about is really Christian coaching. It's the idea of having someone to come into your life to partner with you, right? Someone to help speak into your life. So many people, they need somebody to come into their life to speak to them who is not there just to tell them how everything's great and how they're going to be wonderful. They're not there to be your mother and your father and your grandmother. They're there to partner with you on a journey to equip you. We need to have people in our lives who can speak and help organize us and nudge us in the right directions, right? It's this process of being nudged in various directions. And it's interesting because as we start talking about Christian coaching, which is something that's going to come up a lot in this video cast over the next number of months, the Dream Builders course, I just want to remind you, and I'm encouraging you to make sure you check out the Dream Builders course. If I could just challenge everybody really quick that you're listening, if you're watching this recording, I want to encourage you to sign up for the Dream Builders class that is happening in August. We're looking at 4 things each month. We're looking at first what Craig talked about, and he doesn't know the curriculum yet. I haven't shared with him the curriculum, but the first thing we're talking about is obstacles.
Wow.
We're dealing with obstacles because what are the obstacles that are in our lives that if we don't deal with the obstacles, we are never going to move forward. Number 2, after we deal with obstacles, we're moving forward and we're dealing with purpose. What is God's purpose and his calling for your life? Every person has a purpose and a calling, but most people never truly discover the full purpose that God has for them. And then number 3, we're going to look at vision. How do we turn the purpose into a vision? How do we start looking forward to what God's going to do for us? And then in the last month, we're talking about planning. We don't talk about planning very often. How do we take the vision and the purpose and turn it into a real tangible a change in our lives? And so that's what you need. You need people in your life that can speak that into your life, that can kind of help you. And so we're talking about this idea of hearing these voices, hearing people speak into us. And so we're so glad to have Craig, because he's going to be helping us with this. So then the question then becomes, why do we need godly voices, Craig? As we talk about of course, the impact of the negative, where there's so many people that are negative. Why do we need that godly voice? Why do we need to make sure that the people that are speaking into us are truly godly, not just Christians, right? There's a lot of Christians falsely so-called, right? We need godly people speaking into our lives. And so Craig, why do you think we need godly people speaking into our lives, or godly voices in our lives?
Yeah, I think part of the easiest way for me to answer this is I'm a true believer that the scripture teaches us that from the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaketh. And so I think you need godly voices, because godly voices originate from a prayerful heart. So you need godly voice. So if you're looking at a vision, you're looking at a calling, you need voices coming from someone who understands prayer. You need voices coming from somebody who understands, to your point of vision, that if you present a vision that you can accomplish, then your vision is not big enough. Somebody who understands that a true vision, a true calling from God is going to be something that sounds impossible up front. It's going to be something that you could probably never accomplish by yourself. And so they're going to nudge you to say, wait, is this truly the vision, or is this just a manifestation of the vision? And so you need the godly voice, because the godly voice originates from the prayerful heart. And you need someone who's in tune with God if you're talking about a vision. If all you're going to do is just go on a stroll, then you could go on a stroll without that. But if you're truly saying, I need someone to come beside me, to partner with me, to fulfill a vision, to fulfill a calling, then you need somebody who's in touch with God, because that's where it's originating from. And that's what's going to be able to give you that. That's who's going to be able to give you that confirmation. You know, they'll say that one little thing that's exactly what you needed to hear at exactly the right time. And so also, it's not so much the voice, but it's where the voice originates from my perspective of why it is so critical.
Man, that is powerful. If you see me ever drop my head down, I'm taking notes.
You are the consummate professor, right?
I'm taking notes. Yes, the teacher brain in me. Love that. So here's the quote that he just gave us. I want to challenge you. He said two things. Number one, he said this. He said, godly voices come from a prayerful heart. Oh my Lord, that's so powerful, because we need people in our lives who are praying for us as well, right? That truly have got in touch with God. You can say the right things. You can. What would happen if godly ears were connected with godly voices?
Wow.
If everybody was praying, if you were praying the way God's called you to pray,
wow.
and then this other person that God brings into your life is praying the way God's called them to pray. I mean, there's going to be this synergy that takes place between our ears and their voice. Right. That helps us. And you use the word confirmation, to say, hey, I know what I'm supposed to do. But you also mentioned this, I think it's very important, that God will never call you to a vision that you can accomplish by yourself. Yeah. Right? God never calls us to visions that is just something simple and easy to do. He always challenges us to stretch a little bit further, right? That's that whole idea, stretch yourself. And so if you haven't been stretched in a while, there's a good chance the reason you haven't been stretched is you have become comfortable, and you haven't had anyone in your life in a while say, hey, you need to push a little bit harder. You need to stretch a little bit more. You need to become, Paul says it like this in the book of Philippians. He says, listen, I'm not where I used to be, but I'm also not where I'm going. So I'm pressing towards that mark of the high calling. And so that's the call. That's why we need godly voices in our lives. We need people who have prayed for us. Right. That's the difference between having Christians in your life than just other voices. And whether it's counseling or whether it's coaching or whatever it may be, there's one thing to have Christian voices in your life, because Christians pray for Christians. Christians pray for people. And it's that praying heart that gives us the voice of God, right? It gives us that voice of God. So that was powerful. I wrote that down. That's going to become my quote for tonight. All over redo.church. And we're just going to believe God for that God would help us then. God would help us on two sides of this. One, to identify the people who are praying for us, to identify godly partners in our lives. And that's what this whole Redo Church idea is, that exact thing. The Rediscover Oikos. The word oikos means family. It means household. It means home. That we need a network or a partnership of people. We may not look the same. We may not live in the same geography. We may not live in the same time zones. We may not come from the same backgrounds, but we have one thing in common. It's Jesus Christ. We're part of the household of God. And we need that type of diversity speaking into our lives, to guard against that echo chamber. And so we're rediscovering what it means to be a part of the people of God and hearing those voices. And so our next question, Craig, and I think this is phenomenal. And by the way, guys, if you have a question, do not hesitate. I know this is our first episode and some of you are just listening, but if you have a question, do not hesitate to hop online as we talk about these voices. How do we hear the right voices in our life? If you have a question, please comment down below. We want to get that question. So our third question today is this. Then what is the value then of this whole idea of the coach and consultant? We're launching this whole new idea of Christian coaching, and specifically trying to speak spiritual formation into people, whether they're business leaders or whether they're in a season of transition in their life, or maybe they're going through grief or struggle and they need God to help them. What is the value of actually literally paying somebody? I know that sounds crazy, but actually saying, hey, I want you to help me. No different than going to maybe a counselor or going to a dietitian or a nutritionist to say, I need you to help me get out of this stuck place. I need that voice to help me. So what do you think the benefit is of having these type of people in your life?
Yeah, I was really happy when I saw when you were creating the firm that you differentiated between coaching and consulting, because there is a difference. I have another one of my cohort members, Dr. Greenlee, actually wrote a book about coaching and servant leadership, and she hammered into me that there is a difference between a coach and a consultant.
Yeah.
And the basic difference is that a coach is one who helps you accomplish your desired goal. So a coach comes from the standpoint of whatever the coachee wants, we're trying to help you get there. And so I think that the benefit of it is that you have the vision, you know the calling. The coach then helps you to become accountable to that call, accountable to that vision. Now, that doesn't mean that they may not help you clarify it, because you may still be in a clarifying stage. And so you need somebody to help you clarify it. So I'm not saying they don't help you clarify, but they help you to remain accountable. The other great thing is, because we've already established that visions and callings can't be done on your own, that's what the coach does. They come and partner with you to help you understand some best practices. So not just to be there to keep you accountable and to ride you and to say you're not doing this and what have you done, but it's also say, hey, you know what? As you're doing that, by the way, I have this other resource for you who's also looking to do this. Or, hey, here's a best practice on how you would do a business plan. You don't have to go and figure all of those things out. So the value in expending the resources is that you get resources back. You get someone who maybe has already helped 15 people do a business plan, so you don't have to create one. You also expend the funds so that you can avoid mistakes that others have already made. Sometimes the best lesson is what not to do again. So a coach can not only help you with what your vision is and your goal, they can keep you accountable for one, but then they also bring along resources that you may not have but actually need. Yeah. That's what they're there for. And then once again, they help you to avoid pitfalls that others have already made. And that's just one less restart that you have to do.
Yeah, I think that's a very good, because we're talking here, this could be anything. This could be someone who is God's put on their heart to start a new ministry, right, or start a new business, or maybe God's transitioning their life. Maybe they're being called to move, or maybe they're trying to figure out this new season that they're in. They're transitioning from one job to another, and you're in this point of what do I do? How do I get there? I think we've all asked that question time and time again. We see other people and we see the end results. Right? We see how they got there. Yeah. But the big question isn't how they got there. The question is, how do they do it? How do they do it? Right. Step A to Z to get to the destination. And it's good to have somebody else in your life to help guide you. And I wrote down the word here. It's all about resourcing people, right? Mm-hmm. The reason that we need godly people in our lives is because they're helping resources. And they're bringing a different perspective in my life. I tell you, in my life personally, growing up, no one ever told me that I needed to have outside people speaking into me. I never knew that concept. It actually took, as I started developing and growing even in my professional career, that I realized that there was a whole bunch of information. I needed mentors. I needed partners. I needed coaches, people that could speak into my life that would help me better understand how to take that next step, because I just didn't get it. And so I want to challenge people today, no matter what they're facing. If there are so many opportunities and resources, whether you choose something like Rediscover Church or Rediscover Oikos and go to our website, redo.church, or hop into our Dream Builders course, or if you need a Christian counselor, man, there's so many good Christian counselors out there. Find people who will speak into your life. Too many people have been bombarded by negative voices. They're not hearing godly voices other than their pastors on Sunday, Right. And that's great. Pastors are great, but they can't help you through the week. They're not able to always be that one-on-one voice that you want. You need Christian people, professional Christian people that'll help speak into your life. And so that was just a great point. And so as we look at this, Craig, and we talked a little bit about the difference between coaching and consult. Yes, sir. What's that?
There was one point you made that I would like to just go back to for 1 second.
Okay.
I think in our deference to pastors and to preachers and to deacons, we have done the word calling a disservice, in that we think the only calling there is to preach, and that the only calling there is to be a pastor. And I think that we've done a disservice to the notion of a calling. There's an interpretation of 1 Peter 2 where he talks about the priesthood of all brethren, that says that scripture doesn't mean that we are all priests, but it means that all the work we do is priestly.
That's good.
Meaning that a calling can be more than just to preach. A calling can be more than just church, what we call church related. And so I don't want anyone who's out there listening who feels that God is calling them to do something that is otherwise considered secular, to believe that that's not their calling. So I don't want us to limit the definition of what a calling is, because all work, according to this interpretation, is priestly work when Christians do it. So I just didn't want to pass by the notion that your calling has to be to pastor or to do a ministry thing before you can use a Christian counselor.
That is true.
Your calling is a lot more expansive than just preaching.
Yeah, and that is so true. And I've been challenging people for so long. We need more Christian business leaders. We need more Christian politicians. We need more Christian educators. And yeah, you're not kidding, right? We just need godly people to step up and to become the people God's called them to be, to infiltrate society and to step into various roles. It's interesting. If you look at Jesus and the disciples, you ever noticed how diverse the occupations were of the disciples, right? Yeah. And there was a reason for that. Of course, you had the fishermen. I get that. That was, but it's even interesting in the disciples. You see with Peter and Andrew, they had kind of like a very small business, very small, like it was theirs.
Right.
But if you look at James and John and their father Zebedee, they had these hired servants as well that worked with them. So they were your typical small business. Yeah. Right, they had stepped up. So there was layers, and then you start seeing tax collectors and zealots and all that, and you realize that Jesus intentionally chose people of diverse backgrounds to become his church and to become the apostles. Why? Because there are so many areas that Christians need to get into. Right? We can't, if we get stuck behind the four walls of the church and we don't allow our voices to impact businesses and to impact schools and impact education in various ways or impact our government, what's left for us is a voice, a weakened voice in the church, right? And we're not talking about little C church here. We're talking about big C church, that weakened voice. And so I think God's calling for us. And so I want to kind of add a question here, Craig, as we're digging into this today. Well, I have a big question at the end I'm going to ask you, of course. But, okay, so here we are. Why would anybody in the middle of a pandemic think that this is a good idea to start something new? Why do you think? I mean, this is kind of free to think about a little bit, because we're talking about coaching people through a season, and hey, I started this thing right in the middle of a pandemic because God woke me up in the middle of the night and said, it's time now.
Right.
Now's the time. So why would someone who's sitting on the fence go, is this the best time or the worst time to start something new, right? That's the big question. So what would you advice-wise give to someone who is asking those kind of questions in their life?
I would admonish them to think of it in the actual reverse. Maybe this time came so that God could call you. Remember, my whole premise is that God calls you into whatever the situation is that he wants you to address. And so maybe your calling has always been there, and now the situation just happens to be right because this is the situation you were called to address. It was just this calamity. It was just this issue. It was just this problem that you were called to do. If you think back, sometimes if you look at Moses wanted to free the children of Israel, but he was a little too early. So he had to almost wait till it got worse before he could then go out there and do it. So it's not that, why would you do it now? It is now the right time to do it. So is now the situation that this calling relates to, or this calling applies to. And then that way you avoid looking at the environment, and you avoid trying to determine the good or badness of it rather than the appropriateness of it. Yeah. So is this the appropriate time, regardless of what looks to be good or bad? For callings, is not about good or bad, it's about appropriateness. Is this the issue that God has called me to address? And so that's what if you look at Nehemiah, the walls had to have been down for a period of time, before his heart was pricked for him to then go out and do something. So that would have looked to be the worst time for him to do it, but it actually happened to be what he was called to do. So it's really more about the appropriateness of the timing rather than whether it is good or bad.
That's awesome. I love that. So really our obstacles may actually be opportunities, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, right. And understanding that every obstacle is really an opportunity for God to do something big. And, I've been sharing this with a lot of people. part of the reasons we even launched this video cast is I believe that God is raising up new voices. Right. I think the shift, and I see my brother Ulrich joining us. Ulrich, we'll get Ulrich. He's gonna be on my show here in a little bit. You want to talk about a powerful dude? Ulrich, good to have you, my friend. I'm glad you're online with us. We were talking about this the other day on a video cast, and we we're talking about how, there's been in Christianity, there's been this. There's been this voice, for whether it was old school voices, right? The same people for decades, and COVID has just blew that out of the water. And now new voices are rising up in the church. People that never had the opportunity are able to speak into life through technology like this. And so I think there's an opportunity. And so what looked like an obstacle may be a great opportunity. And it's just a matter of whether or not like you said, it's all about timing, right? It's all about that whole timing of what is God's will and what is God doing. And I'm of the opinion it's time. And I see a question. Let's stop right now with a quick question. Ken's asking us this: what does your client look like? That is a great question. What I know my vision is. I want to hear what your vision is, Craig. Who are the kind of people that we're trying to reach out to?
Yeah, I think we want people who understand that they're at a point in their life where they have a calling, they have a vision, they have recognized that they cannot do it on their own, and they really want somebody to partner with them and help them to fulfill the vision that God has given them. Like I said, it doesn't have to be a church. It just has to be someone who understands that we are going to be unapologetically Christian in our approach. Yeah. Our worldview will be a Christ-centered worldview, and we're going to come from that standpoint. And the client would be someone who appreciates and who is looking for a Christ-centered way to accomplish whatever that vision or that goal is. Whether it is a vision that is traditionally thought of as a Christian vision, or just a vision that God sent to you, even if everybody else thinks it's a secular one.
Exactly. That's good. And, because the church, the big C church, right? Not little C church, right? That's the local church. Right. That is any person who is a believer in every context in society.
That's right.
And I'm going to tell you right now, my heart is, I'm a professor, I'm an author, I'm a pastor, I'm a researcher, I'm a lot of things. But I always bring the pastoral flair to it. Man, my goal is to empower you and to transform you and to encourage you and to be your biggest cheerleader to help you accomplish what you need to accomplish. It's not my job to write your vision, but it's my job to help you navigate through this process and kind of help you through it. And so who is the ideal client? It is like Craig said, I think is the key here. It's all about people who want to have God's voice being spoken into them, that are willing to be accountable, that are willing to say, you know what? I need to invest in me. Right. I need to invest in the vision. I need somebody to help me take this next step. And that's why Craig's coming on board. And this is a great opportunity as well. Really quickly, guys, we're bringing a diverse group together. There's going to be 4 of us when this is all said and done at the very beginning stages of Rediscover Oikos. Craig's joining me. I'm so glad. You don't understand. When God told me to ask Craig, and that was it. He's God's man. He's my Joshua. I don't know about that. He may be Moses and I may be Joshua. Anyway, but I love this guy. And another guy God told me to bring on board that I'm going to share with you real quick. He's going to be our speaker, our guest speaker next week with us. And his name is Pastor Chris Clem. He's out of Arkansas. So I'm going to overlay this real quick and let you see this, everyone. Chris Clem's going to be with us. And he is another guy that, man, he can pour into your life. He brings a marketing perspective. And so he brings something that I don't have not even any understanding of. He can help us understand marketing and business management. And he brings a new perspective to it. Craig brings a management and an IT perspective to this. I bring an educational and a spiritual and a pastoral perspective. And so we're bringing a diverse group together because we want to help people. We want to empower people. We're all about helping people reach the goal that God has for them. So thank you for the question, Ken. Ken, I would love for you to reach out to us, man. We would love to see you get plugged in with us. We're believing God. If you know somebody, as you're watching today, if you know somebody that needs somebody to speak into their life, and you're even worried about finances, you're going, I don't know how this all works. Just message us. We want We believe we just want to empower people. It is ministry. It's business, but it's ministry. And
Right.
you know our heart. You see what Craig's all about. You know he's amazing. I told you he's a rock star, man. And we shop and we have the same barber and everything.
Exactly.
I need a haircut, Craig. I don't know about you, man. My head, he's got a beard going. I can't pull that off. I don't know what to do. But that's my brother there. I love him. So now here's the big segment. At the end of every one of our casts, we ask our guest one big question here. And so we're about to move into the end question. Again, if you have a question tonight, please don't hesitate to ask us because we do want to answer it. But here's the big question. We're going to ask this one right here. Our end segment is, what is God saying to us in the middle of COVID-19, where it seems like the whole world has just went nuts? What do you think, Craig? What do you believe God is speaking to his church in 2020 in the middle of COVID-19?
Wow. Yeah. I remember you told me you were going to ask me that. So my wife told me, you need to pray about that before you answer. And I said, okay, I'll do. Yeah. So she's my coach. So I think God, well, first of all, let me say, so that nobody walks away from this video cast, neither one of us is saying that God sent COVID, that this was within the divine will of God, that this was going to happen, and that God is cursing, yada, 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 all of that kind of stuff. So let's establish that up front. However, there are lessons I think that we can learn. And so let me give the short answer, and then let me I think God is trying to remind the church that Christology has to always come before mission, and has always, and even ecclesiology. Yeah. So here's where I get that. A couple of the books that I've read, even when I was in school, one of them was written by Michael, and this was the worldly character of the Christian calling. And remember that interpretation of 1 Peter 2 when I was talking about that the work of the individual is priestly work. He extends that and says that also applies to the church. And so the first thing I think this is teaching us is that the church has to remember that your work is sacred work, and everything that you do is sacred work. And I think that the church had gotten away from that. Yeah. Here's what I mean by that. The other book is by Neil Cole, which was Church 3.0, Upgrades to the Future of the Church. One of the things Cole talked about was that we had gotten to the point that we were letting church, we were letting the mission, we were letting our programs and our policies and our procedures, we were letting that become what was important to us. And so it almost appears that during this particular time, God stripped all of those things away from us so that we could then get back to the only thing that we were supposed to be doing anyway, which is lifting him up. Yeah. Let me give you a scriptural example of what I'm talking about. And in our church, we've been studying the book of John. So in John 2, we all know about Jesus overthrowing the tables in the temple. And I know there are a lot of different interpretations, but one of the things Pastor Griffin at the church reminded us is that in exegesis of that scripture is Jesus did that because the money changers were in the court of the Gentiles. Yeah. So the one place that the Gentiles could come to worship God was now being taken up with church work. So the business of the church had gotten in the way of people coming to worship God. I think that's the same thing that was going on in 2020. The business of the church had gotten in the way. And so during this time, God has been able to strip away some of the business of the church. So now that you can't go to your building, you realize it was never about the building. Now that you're streaming and you've had to condense your programs, you realize it was never really about the order of service. Now that you can't go out and physically do things, you realize that you have to change the services that you do, or how you service your congregation, or maybe even a new service. So in the words of Cole, what we have now come to understand is what Cole said a long time ago. We have now moved from trying to get the people of the world into the church to now trying to get the church into the world.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're doing now. We're doing it through live streaming. We're doing it through Zooming Bible studies. We're now reaching people who are not necessarily in our local cities because it's not about the building. And so I really believe that God has allowed us to understand that it should have always been about Christology. It should have always been about lifting Christ, not about your programs, not about your missions and your visions and your policies and your procedures. And I love all of that stuff. That's why I went to graduate school, because I wanted to be able to do all of that, but it's about Christ first. And so that's what I think he was telling us, is that we were letting the business of the church get in the way of those who wanted to come and worship.
That's it. Boy, that's good stuff. I wrote that down. That's my second quote that I'm going to put out, Craig. So thank you for that, man. You know, because it is true. We had to let the business of the church interfere from us glorifying God. Yeah. You know, we had replaced it, really. And I think I agree with your assessment of the story of the money changers, because that's exactly what the case is, you know. And what's funny is it's happening everywhere, right? It does. And so whether if you're a Christian in a business world, the sacred cows that you have created, or the golden calves in your life have been stripped away. You know, here's what I understand, that there's purpose in suffering sometimes, right? Mm-hmm. And that, you know, God didn't bring COVID. COVID is a natural occurrence. I think it's natural, or I don't know what it is. I don't know if we've had the full answer to that yet. I don't know what it is, but it is what it is, right? That's right. So in the midst of every bit of this here, so whatever COVID is,
whatever it
is, what we do understand is that, you know, God takes natural occurrences and he molds them and he moves them. You know, he put things in order. You know, God saw this in the creation of the earth. He understood that one day these types of things would happen. Not a surprise. Yeah, he understood it, right? But, you know, he's not this vindictive God that says, oh, you know what? I don't like how America is. I don't like how China is. Let me just do this. No, it was always purposeful. He would allow these things to happen purposefully. And the purpose is for the church is to wake us up a bit, to shake us out of our comfort zone. There's a mission to be done. Right. There is a mission to be done. And I think you're right. It's Christ-centered. It's been very interesting to me, because I feel like what we have done is we have put a pin, hopefully for a while, in the prosperity gospel. You know, that if you love God, he's going to give you a new car, a new job, and this, that. You know, how do we serve God in suffering? Right. How do we serve God when our businesses are struggling, when our whole dreams and hopes and dreams are falling apart, when the job we asked for we didn't get, when our children are at home screaming bloody murder because they haven't been to school and you're begging the schools to open up? I'm not speaking from personal experience here. Okay, yes, I am speaking from personal experience here. You know, how do we serve God in suffering? And there's a lesson about suffering in all of this, that we learn that we trust God, that he's faithful no matter what, you know, and that's the voices we need to hear, that even in the midst of chaos and when everything doesn't go as planned, that God still has a purpose for our lives. You know, collectively, Jesus is coming back. We know the promise of the return of Jesus Christ, but individually, there's also the personal plans that he has for every single one of our lives to move us forward. And we need God to help. We need us. Probably each one of us need to do a better job of allowing God to speak that into us. And we have so many negative voices that are blocking our ears, right? And so we want to encourage everybody that's listening today, listen to the voice of God. So one last thing we do here, Craig, is as we're wrapping up our podcast today, I'm going to put a plug in for our Dream Builders in just one moment here. Again, Craig's going to be hopping on with me for the Dream Builders. He is going to be a frequent guest because I love to see his face. And this is, you don't understand. Craig Bell is very high up on the list of people that I love dearly. And so I knew God put him in my life for a reason. You know, I met him. I said, that's my guy right there. You just know sometime. And so he's going to be on our podcast very often, hopefully as often as possible, and just have him come in and talk to us. He joined us in Rediscover Oikos. He's one of our coaches and consultants, and we're excited about having him on board with us. But he's going to be with that Dream Builders. He's actually going to be building his own Dream Builders course here in no time. I'm creating the curriculum. It's finishing. It's so close to being done. You do not want to miss Dream Builders. I want to encourage you right now to reach out to me, reach out to Craig. we want to get you plugged into our first Dream Builders course. And then that course, we're going to keep offering it over and over again. We're going to be building new courses as well. You want to be a part of it. It's going to transform your life. I promise you about that. So I want to encourage you to be a part of Dream Builders. We want you to get registered. How do you register? Go to Rediscover Oikos. That's our website. You can go to redo.church. That's our website for Rediscover Oikos. And you'll click on appointments. You will see a tab that says Dream Builders. Click on it or sign up and get all the information. I will send you the information to be a part of our Zoom. It's going to be a live Zoom session that we're doing. You don't want to miss that. You want to be a part of that. Now, as we plug into that, Craig, I give you the last word, man. This is your time. Anything that you would just like to share with our audience today? Let me say to the audience real quick, thank you for joining us tonight. It's such a blessing to have each one of you to take time to be with us. Every Thursday night, 8:30, we're going to come here together. There'll be different voices talking about church stuff, talking about business stuff, talking about Christian leadership, and we want you to be a part of it. Share this, like it, be a part of it. We are so glad to have you. Craig, that's what the last point is. Someone's asking me, Ken is asking me, what is the name of Dr. Bell's book? That's a great question.
Oh, I happen to have a copy right here.
Yeah, there you go. I want you to tell us a little bit about all that he's doing. We're going to end tonight with Craig sharing us. Tell us about your book, Craig. Tell us about whatever you want to tell us about. This is your time, man. We are so glad. Thank you for joining us today, Craig. God bless you.
Thank you so much, guys. And I know Dr. Henson has said a lot about me, but trust me when I tell you, it is a mutual admiration society. This guy, I told him as I was talking with him, and if for those who may have had the book, you'll see even in them, as I talk in the book and I give out acknowledgments, I tell him when he walked into the room, even though it was a campus full of professors, you knew that Dr. Henson had walked into the room. And so for those who are considering coaching, those who are considering the course, this man of God, this pastor, professor, is who you want on your side and who you want to learn from, because he doesn't just teach, he actually cares. I know as a student, we knew he was praying for us. How do we know? Because he told us, and he was unashamedly about that. And so we felt that. So I just wanted to put that plug in. My book, actually, Dr. Henson was the chair as I wrote my book. And the name of the book is actually Doing Good Well, the applicability of leadership theory to faith-based leadership. And so here's the notion. The notion is that churches do great work. And so I would never be one of those who down churches and say, oh, you're not doing this, you're not doing that. We do good work. The problem is we work so hard to do it. And so what I wanted to do was to try to outline some things that you can do to help you to not only do good work, but to help you do it well. But for those who are pastors or preachers, a lot of you who have gone to seminary understand that seminary has done a great job of teaching homiletics and apologetics and all of those other things, but they didn't spend a lot of time talking about the business of the church. And so this book wants to help bridge that gap. One pastor I recently spoke with said that he focused on everything in seminary except for the thing he does the most, which is trying to actually run the church. And so that's what the book is all about. I would love for you to get it. I would love to be able to work with you and talk with you about it. The last thing I want to say is not only have we cheapened what the word calling is, I think we've also cheapened what the word favor is. And so I think sometimes we think the favor of God always feels good and is always immediate. And I would say if you search the scriptures, you'll find that that's not true. My wife's favorite story in the Bible is that of Joseph. And, you find Joseph going through all of these things, and scripture continues to say, but God was with him. God was with him. If you look at the children of Israel, they were going through all of this stuff, and scripture says, but yet they continue to multiply. You look at Mary, she was favored among women, but then she had to go through all of this stuff because she was unwed. Please don't think that the favor of God has to feel good right now. So, and never allow anybody to tell you that if you're going through struggles, if you're trying to start this business and it didn't work, and you've had to start 3 times, and you've had to start over and over, that doesn't mean that you don't have the favor of God. Don't cheapen what the favor of God looks like because it doesn't feel good right now. The favor of God is that God understands your outcome, and he understands the vision, and he understands where you're going, and he will get you there even if it doesn't feel good right now. So that was really just the last thing. Don't cheapen what your call is, And don't cheapen what the word favor means just because it doesn't feel good right now. We want to come along beside you. We want to help you get to that end so that you can really understand that God had favored you all along. And we really want to just be that resource for you.
That's it. And by the way, I would encourage you to go buy his book. It's a phenomenal book. It really is. Craig, show the cover of the book so everybody can see that real quick. Sure. Yeah, look at that. Doing Good Well by Dr. Craig Bell. Very good book. It's an easy, smooth read. You'll be blessed by it. I know you will. Please go buy it. I know, he has mouths to feed, his own. Amen. But no, it'll bless your soul. So God bless you. All right, everybody, we are done for the night. Thank you for joining us for our first episode. Dr. Craig Bell, thank you for joining us, my friend. I love you, buddy. I'm so glad you're here with us tonight. And so we're going to finish up tonight. Again, welcome to Rediscover Oikos, our Redo.Church videocast. This will be every Thursday night at 8:30. So we'd love to have you come join us. Be a part of our community. With Rediscover Oikos, get plugged into the Dream Builders courses. You're going to be blessed by that. I'm going to tell you, it'll transform your life. I know it will. I cannot wait for us to get that going really well here soon. Be a part of our Facebook community as well. We got a lot of great things happening. Go check out resources. If you're interested in Bible studies, if you go to Redo.Church, you will see a whole section on Bible studies, digital Bible studies for your church. Great information for you. God bless you. We're done for the night. Craig, my friend, I love you, buddy. Have a great night. Everyone online, have a great night. God bless you.